Well, we're in Fauldhouse. We're at the top of the north side of the village. We're just on the boundary of the forestry, and we've got Church Place to my left and Parkview to my right. Over here we've got St John the Baptist Primary School, and at the back we've also got the Partnership Centre, which I was heavily involved in when I was a councillor, and driving that project to bring basically all the public services that are provided in the village under one roof. So we've got the GP, we've got dentist, we've got swimming pool, we've got sports facilities, library and housing services, council services, all under one roof in a new build. And but this is Fauldhouse, fantastic community, very proud to come from here, love the place. Well, it's probably talking about what I've been doing, it kind of goes back quite a bit, and maybe explain a wee bit of that. When I left school, I couldn't wait to go to school. You know, my mum was a primary teacher and my dad was a bricklayer, and you know, both of them encouraged me to stay on at school, but it wasn't for me, and I wasn't stupid or anything like that, but it just wasn't for me, and I left, and I actually wanted to be a chef, but I worked in that for a wee while, and the wages and the conditions were just appalling. In fact, in hospitality and catering, it's not improved any, actually. They're some of the most lowest paid workers you could find, and the conditions are often really poor. So I went and done an apprenticeship, a YTS at first actually with my dad, an apprenticeship, and I worked as a bricklayer with him for about 10 or 11 years, I think it was. But I went back to night school, West Lothian College, great place, you know, gives so many people a second opportunity in life, and it certainly gave me that opportunity at night school. I went and did a couple of hires, and I got enough to get into university, and I never contemplated going to university, but again my sister and other folk encouraged me, my mum and my dad and others, and I did that, and I worked in social housing. I worked as a housing officer in Craigshill and in Wester Hales, and then bizarrely I thought maybe I'll go and be a teacher, because I wanted to kind of catch some of the folk like me who ran out of school when they shouldn't have, kind of thing. So the same year I qualified as a teacher, I became the local councillor here. I was elected as local councillor, which I was very proud of, and I taught part-time and was a councillor up until 2011, and then by God knows how, so many different twists and turns of fate, I ended up an MSP in the Scottish Parliament, and that wasn't any grand plan, it was a pure fluke, and I was there for 10 years, and I just stood down at the election in May, and now I'm working with two pals to set up a social enterprise where we'll help community groups, charities and trade unions do campaigning work, social justice campaigning, and we're doing that on a not-for-profit basis. So that's kind of, it's called Unity Consulting, and it's really good. We've taken an office down at the local community trust down the road. We hope to be working with organisations like that, and they had a free office space, so we're happy to rent it from them, and we hope to launch officially in the next couple of weeks. Geez, that's a good question. I suppose it would see us working with organisations that brought about big change. There's so many massive changes that we need to see in society. We see it in my community, the inequalities that exist in society, the issues around housing, massive need for good quality housing, low pay, people in the poverty line, people unable to feed their families in one of the richest countries in the world. Absolutely, extraordinary that we even consider putting up with that. We see levels of things like addiction and educational inequality. Looking at things like addiction, if the levels of drug deaths that we see in Scotland, if that was impacting on middle class communities, the situation would have been resolved a long time ago. If that was happening in Bearsden and Mulgai and Dunblane and places like that, it would have been solved. It would have been solved. But when it happens in communities like the ones that we live in, where working class communities live, on the streets of Glasgow and the streets of cities like Edinburgh and Dundee, nobody cares, because largely politicians don't think there's any political capital to be gained by investing in services for people who have got addiction or people who are homeless. Because do they vote? Probably not. So therefore they're dispensable. So if the social enterprise was setting up, if Unity Consulting can work with community organisations and unions and others who are in the business of trying to drive progressive change, and we make society more equal and fairer, then I'll be very happy. We are not in it to make money. We're a not-for-profit organisation. We're in it to change the world, continue to have aims to change the world, and always will have. So for the last few years, periodically, I've been, you meet fascinating people, very interesting people who've been through such major events in their lives that I thought it would be good to capture some of that and bring it together. So the book has brought together people, women and men, who have been involved in major social justice campaigns over the last 40 or 50 years. People who've been involved in things like the miners' strike, the Hillsborough disaster, the Grenfell Tower tragedy, the campaign against the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act, the MESH campaign that I was heavily involved in, people from the Liverpool Dockers, from those who were blacklisted. I mean, the whole range of campaigns people have been involved in. And these are folk who never sought the limelight. They didn't get involved because there was money or fame involved. They did it because they were driven by a sense of injustice and a desire to see the truth come out. And so, for example, if you look at the Hillsborough campaign, Margaret Aspinall, who is an absolutely wonderful woman whose son left home to go to a football match and never came back, and she had to deal with that earth-shattering event of losing her son, but then was determined that the truth came out about Hillsborough. And that took 30 odd years for that to, a determined campaign, and so many knockbacks that these people had, and yet they had the resilience and the organisation and the ability and the drive to bounce back and say, we're not accepting that defeat. We know that we are right. We know that the truth will come out. And ultimately it did. Other guy, Terry Renshaw, he was a plasterer who was involved with a group, building workers in the first ever, the only ever national building trade strike in the 1970s. And they went picketing to Wales and had a day of peaceful picketing. No one was arrested and came home. And 6 months later, they were effectively dawn-raided by the police, and a group of them arrested and charged with mobbing and rioting 6 months earlier in Wales. Completely fabricated charges. Ricky Tomlinson, the actor, was one of them who was involved in that campaign. He was jailed for 2 years and he was in solitary confinement for most of that on hunger strike. People don't know that about Ricky, but he was one of them. These guys who are now, many of them are dead, but the ones who remain are in their 70s and 80s. They fought that injustice for almost 50 years, and only a few months ago in the Court of Appeal, their convictions were quashed. Those guys could have given up a long time ago, but they were determined because they knew that they were right and truth and justice was on their side. So the book is a collection of these different campaigns, and it's individual stories. It's the people telling their story, and there are some remarkable ones. There's a woman who is not a real name, but she goes under the name of Andrea, and she was a political activist, a union member. She worked with homeless people in London as a nurse, And her story is about her meeting a guy who she fell in love with, who lived with her, who she trusted, who she introduced to her family and she was going to marry, who turned out to be an undercover police officer who actually had her under surveillance all the time in that couple of years relationship. It's an extraordinary story that at the moment is actually subject to a public inquiry at the UK level. So the stories are very varied. They go right up to the present day, to issues about the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act, to a case of corporate killing, which the family are still very much active in pursuing proper health and safety for workers. And it is a fascinating collection, and I hope people are inspired by it, because the stories that are there, I think, give us hope. That's the main thing. I think they give us hope that through collective organising, through people coming together to campaign against injustice, that it gives us hope for a better world. And I think they're truly inspiring. It's called "If You Don't Run, They Can't Chase You." And that was a quote from a guy who was actually born just about 4 miles to the west, Mick McGahey, who was his deputy president of the National Union of Mine Workers during the miners' strike. And it's a great quote from him, because what he was saying to workers is that if you stand up, if you turn around and face the people who are pursuing you, whether it be your employer, whether it be the government, whether it be the establishment or the powers that be, if they're inflicting injustice on you, don't run for them. Turn around and face them. Organise and fight back. Don't keep running, because if you just keep running, they'll just keep chasing you, and by the end we'll be ground down to nothing. So it's all about organising. It's all about people coming together with a common objective to drive a better world. That's what the whole theme is about. Oh, my life journey. Eventful, I would say. I've never... Michael Heseltine, the politician, said that when he was, I don't know, about 10-year-old, he sat down and wrote his life plan on a bit of paper, and by the time he was 50, he was going to be the Prime Minister or something like that. I barely planned things for one day to the next, and if I had it, certainly I wouldn't have worked out like this. I've done a lot of jobs in my life. I've worked in, kitchens, I've been a bricklayer, I've worked in schools and college, I've been a councillor, I've been an MSP in Parliament, I'm sitting here in a chair in the middle of a field. I've done loads of stuff, and I've kind of enjoyed it all. I think all of those different bits add to your life experience and give you some... I've met some of the best people ever in the world on building sites. Great people. Some of the most intelligent, naturally gifted people, and smart, bright, humorous, great singers, joke tellers. Loved every second of working with them. Just fantastic people who would wipe the floor with people in Parliament. They would absolutely wipe the floor with them, if only they were given the chance. And I really think that there's certain things have happened in my life where I'm encouraged with my family or my pals or whoever, where a chance has came, and it's not really been a big plan, but it's kind of just, I've took it, and that's been a good thing. 2 more words. Grounded, I would say. I'm absolutely rooted in this community, and I'm 100% working class. I never want to be anything other. I would happily live here the rest of my life. The people, the humour, the generosity, the spirit that people have got here is just, second to none. We, in this community, when people fall in hard times, people rally round. And whether that be supporting them financially or morally or just putting your arm around them or whatever, but people help each other here, and you can't buy that. You genuinely, there's no money can buy the generosity spirit that people have got. And when I was away in Parliament and all that stuff, coming back here was me grounded, absolutely grounded. And I've got the same pals I've always had, and I love them dearly, and I love living in this community. One more word, what would it be? I was maybe committed. I'm kind of one of the folk that if I'd say I'll do something, I'll do it. And I like to, if I fix my mind on something, then I like to pursue it right through. So whether that's, if I start up, campaigning in Parliament was my thing. If I start a campaign, I would never sort of see it run with it for a week and get a bit tired with it, and then it goes away again. My mentor was politician Tam Dael, who could not have been more different for me. He was an old Etonian who spoke with the poshest voice you've ever heard, and he lived in a stately home down in the corner at Linlithgow. And he couldn't have come from more different places. But he became my mentor, and he was very well respected in the community. He was very well liked. If you went to him with an issue, you knew he would pursue that issue for you. And he taught me to be dogged and determined. He said, it doesn't matter if you bore for Britain, as long as you get the result at the end. So he would go into Parliament and raise the same issue 50 times, 100 times. It didn't matter. And they would all groan when he raised it again. But 99 times out of 100 it would be proved right. I did the same when I was in Parliament. I would go in and ask a question a minister, get a knockback, dust myself down and come back again, find a new way, starting the campaign again, speak to the media, go out to the people. It's about, that kind of commitment and determination. And I see it in the community. You see it for people in the community, whether they're working with young people, sports organisations, music, people who are committed to something. It could be the church, it could be whatever it is. People who are committed to things, I think they get a lot of respect from people because they know that they're genuine and they know that they believe in the issue. The advice I would give would be, if you've got an issue you believe in, then go for it. Go for it, and don't accept the status quo. Don't accept people saying, "Oh, listen, folk have tried that before and didn't work," or people rolling their eyes, go, "Oh, here he goes again. Here's somebody always on about, this issue or that issue," because you'll always get the negative people. You'll always get folk who'll tell you nothing can be done. This is the way it is, and we've always got to live like this. That's what frustrates me about the gross inequality we've got in society. That we have the ability to change it. Mandela summed it up perfectly when he says poverty is man-made, but human beings have got the ability to change it. So we have. So if people are campaigning, if people have got a desire to change the world in any way, don't take no for an answer. All the people in my book didn't run. They didn't run away. They organised and they campaigned, and most of the time they were proven right. And I think that whether that's at a very local level or a national level, look at Greta Thunberg, a young girl on her own, sitting outside a school, created a global phenomenon because people empathised with her, they understood what she was about, and I think she got huge respect for that. And that's a great example of somebody who just isn't prepared to be told nothing's going to change, because it can change and it's up to us to change it.